when we talk about conflict, it's such a scary word, right? We're in a conflict. I really like to think about conflict at its core is just a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
It's a difference of opinion. You have an opinion, I have an opinion. If we're going out for ice cream, we're going to pick up one quart, you and I. You want chocolate, I want vanilla.
Oh, man.
We have a conflict. And we can either keep it what I like to call little C conflict, where we are reasonable about the whole thing, or it can become a big C conflict, and it can ruin our relationship.
Yeah. Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. Hope in Real Life family, so glad to be here with you. We have an episode for you today. We're calling, listen, Face the Friction, Conflict Communication 101, because who of us does not have a little bit of conflict in our lives? I'm here with a very special guest, Mrs. April Miller. April, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself and maybe why you would be uniquely qualified to talk on this topic of communication?
Well, I hope I'm qualified. I've been a therapist for about 18 and a half years now, a licensed therapist. I helped start the group Life Care, Counseling and Coaching here locally. We have several offices now. I went to Gordon Conwell Seminary, which Billy Graham helped start the campus that I was at Charlotte. I love marriage. I am married. But yeah, conflict
married
is
to
a great
John,
conversation. John
who's actually a great
Miller.
guy. So for those listening, I do know April personally, know her husband John better, and great guy.
Yes.
3 kids.
3 kids, yes, all in that starting to launch phase of life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we are so excited to have you here
you.
with us. We talked pre-show. We got a lot of questions to jump into. I'm going to surprise you with one right out of the gate.
Yes.
I want to know the biggest fight that you've ever been in your life and who it was with and what it was over.
This is exactly what I was talking about.
Come on, reel us in.
Fight. I mean, do you want to go public arena? Or are you trying to go private? I can't narrow in. There's been many.
Hey, our listeners,
I don't avoid conflict.
Yeah, our listeners won't know. You can make it up. Just give us a good one.
I
Tell
could
us
get
about
into
the
the
time-
Wake County School Board.
How about
I
the time
could get
John
into-
didn't take out the trash? Did that ever
well,
happen?
that's just, yeah. I mean, biggest fight, Jason.
Okay. Let's do this.
Sorry.
So we're talking about conflict inside of communication.
Yes.
Communication, how to communicate well inside of conflict. Let's just start baseline.
Yes.
What's our definition of conflict?
It's a great question, and I like that you asked it because what are we doing here? When we talk about conflict, it's such a scary word, right? We're in a conflict. I really like to think about conflict at its core is just a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
It's a difference of opinion. You have an opinion, I have an opinion. If we're going out for ice cream, we're going to pick up one quart, you and I. You want chocolate, I want vanilla.
Oh, man.
We have a conflict. And we can either keep it what I like to call little C conflict, where we are reasonable about the whole thing, or it can become a big C conflict, and it can ruin our relationship.
Yeah.
I've heard of churches that have split over the color of the carpet.
Right.
That's just people doing a difference of opinion very poorly.
Yeah.
So, and in marriage, since we're going to be talking about marriage, I was just going to share, I remember my first couple of years were rough with John. And I remember after one big fight, I remember having this dawning where I was like, man, if we could just not do that again. We're so good together if we just don't do that. And I remember when it finally dawned on me, you know what? We're always going to do that.
Yeah.
There's always going to be conflict because there's always going to be differences of opinion. Right. If we can just do it better is really what's going to make marriage better.
Yeah, I think, and I, as a pastor, also a part of who I talk to, especially younger couples, and it's almost like it didn't seem like we used to fight, and now we disagree on things, and there's like this huge surprise, like, okay, so wait a minute, you were raised in one home under one set of values with an entire set of life circumstances, and this person was raised in a different home with a completely different set of life circumstances. And most of the time, if we're honest, you probably haven't talked about all of that stuff before you get married. And then we act surprised There's conflict when we get in there.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. What have you seen? What are some of the most common sources of conflict inside of, you said marriage, so maybe inside of marriages, inside of relationships?
Yeah, right? Differences of opinion around those high value topics are the ones where we're going to see show up in our marriage in more hurtful ways. Certainly finances. That's always a big one. You've got your spenders, you've got your savers. Even though, you have someone who's struggling to stay gainfully employed, that can be an issue. Parenting, not having a similar parenting philosophy in play can cause a lot of differences of opinion / conflict. Household chores is a big one. Different expectations about who's going to be doing what or who's doing their fair share. And then I'd say another big one is extended family. Parents, in-laws, adult siblings. There can be a lot of differences of opinion around how we handle those relationships.
That doesn't happen in my family. I have the best in-laws in the world. And if they're listening, love you guys. Thank you for being great. Okay. All right.
Well played.
All right. How about this? How about what does a healthy disagreement look like? Because you said, these things, like you said, these could be small C conflicts, or maybe even if they're big C conflicts. What does it look like to engage those in a healthy way versus having, say, destructive conflict?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like to think about it. Everybody's got needs.
Yep.
Everybody has needs. Who are we going to go to with those needs? We want to go to the people that we know the best, that we feel the safest with. Expressing those needs in healthy ways is what creates healthy relationships. And so I'd like to share a little bit about something I call a butter sandwich for delivering a need that I think can be helpful for people. Would you mind if I did that?
I would love to take notes while you're doing that. You go right ahead.
All right. So I like for people to think about conflict in the form of what I call a butter sandwich, right? You got a layer of bread, you got a layer of butter, and you got a layer of bread, all right? When you're thinking about a butter sandwich, you start with the butter. When you deliver it bread, butter, bread, all right? But when you're thinking about conflict, that's the butter. I want you to think about, what is my need or my want? What is it that I'm after? Don't stay in the circumstances. What's really at the core? I want you to respect me, or I need more of your time. And can you get it into I phrases? That's where we stay away from the yous and all of that, right? So can I think about what I want or need in a couple of sentences and get it into I phrases? I call that the butter. The bread, when you deliver the bread is reminding the other person, hey, we're on the same team here. We're wearing the same color jersey. We're on the same side of the field. You may play offense. I may be special teams, but we are on the same team. You don't have to say team to your partner. You could. But whatever you're going to say in that beginning, you're just reminding them, I really like having you as my pastor. I really want to be for you. But, and that's why I call it a butter sandwich. You don't have to use the word but that's where you're transitioning into, here's my felt need that I'm having. And if you can, some people won't let you get to the back end of the bread because they want to jump in when they hear the need. But if you can, the back end is similar to the front end. You're just reminding them we're on the same team. And I'm telling you this because I love you. I love being married to you. I love being your partner. I think this will help us be better together. So bread, we're on the same team. Butter, here's my felt need and I phrases. And then bread, I'm telling you this because I love you and we're on the same team. So that to me is a healthier way to deliver something that could be a difference of opinion.
Yeah, that's great. Super practical. I appreciate that. My wife and I, Diana, when in our earlier years of marriage, I can specifically remember, and somehow by God's grace, we just stumbled on this idea of recognizing when we were in conflict. That whole analogy, because I was a collegiate athlete, she was a collegiate athlete, but we started talking of, okay, wait a minute, like one of us would kind of raise our hand, throw a flag and say, hey, definitely seems like we're approaching this from opposite sides of the table. Like we should, what if we approach this like we are, same team, come around on the same side of the table. If anything's on the table or across from us, it's the problem that we have. And then we can kind of approach it
Excellent.
together.
Yes, that's exactly the mentality.
Hope in Real Life family, I want to take a moment and let you know about a resource that we have for you for your own personal development, spiritual enrichment, and really a way for you to find a bit more hope in real life. We have a tool for you called the Hope in Real Life app. It offers things like parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. If you're looking for it, there's even Bible reading plans in there. And there's a community where you can even share prayer requests and know that someone is praying for you for whatever it is that you have going on in your life. It's available right now in the Apple App Store or in Google Play. You can search Hope in Real Life in both stores, or you can use the download link that is in the show notes. Remember, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible even in real life. So you mentioned that you'd go bread, butter, and then sometimes before we can get through the butter, that's when things even heat up a bit more. What advice would you have for couples who maybe struggle staying calm during a heated discussion, conflict, maybe not being able to make it all the way through the butter to get to the bottom slice of bread?
Yeah. With this, I think I want to jump ahead into, I want to talk a little bit about the Gottmans. They're a couple, John and Julie Gottman. That's the lens I use when I do marriage counseling.
Okay.
They're researchers who've pulled together a lot of data around how couples thrive or how couples deteriorate. They like to talk about, those who are together and married for 50 years and still in love versus those who get divorced or maybe they live together, but they're just cohabitating at that point. They kind of call them the masters versus the disasters. One of the things they discovered in their research was a concept they like to refer to as flooding. Flooding, okay? It's a physiological thing that happens in your body. Another way to look at it is it's called fight or flight. It's when your endocrine system gets involved, adrenaline gets dumped into your system.
That's when we usually make the best decisions.
Yeah. Your body is literally preparing itself for fight or flight.
Yeah.
And we've added a couple more now, freeze and fawn and all of that. But let's just stay with fight or flight. Yeah. And like you just said, the blood is running to your extremities in order to prepare itself for that. And it's leaving key organs, including your brain. That frontal cortex, where you do a lot of that reasoning and decision making, is actually being deprived during that time. So when a couple falls into flooding, whether it's one person or it's both of them, one of the most important things they can do is to start identifying that physiological change when it happens and stopping the conversation. When we push forward, like you were alluding to, is when we start to get really destructive. We're not thinking well. That's when you hear things later like, I don't know why I said that. I didn't mean that.
Hypothetically, my wife would say, I don't know why I threw the phone book at you. Exactly. Something.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry,
so
babe. It's one time. It was really funny. We still laugh.
It really happened? Back when you had phone books?
Yeah, but it was you. So there, at least it was a long time ago.
Yes.
It's a long time ago. So,
yes.
How about this? Active listening. We talked about that a little bit. How can active listening play a healthier role in our conflict? Can we maybe define active listening?
Yes.
And then how does that fit into this whole idea of conflict?
Yeah. I think when we say that, we're labeling something, most people have seen it, but it's an active role play where you have, communication is two people. You have a communicator and you have a receiver.
Right.
So as an example, if I told you I have a red car in the parking lot, you're immediately going to have an image of a red car in your head. Mm-hmm. But if it's the same one that I have in my mind, the odds are pretty much against that. Right. If you have a married couple and maybe they've owned the same red car, they may be thinking about that same car, but they still might be thinking about the car I have in my mind. So active listening, active role playing in that, I'm communicating to you more details and you are catching those details. And you're listening so intently, you're able to reflect them back to me before you give me your opinion about them. So if I say I have a red car in the parking lot, you have an image. If I say it's a muscle car, I probably changed your image. Right. You're probably thinking I drive a Volvo. Right. But if I say it's a muscle car and it's
a Camaro or something,
yeah, it's a Mustang GT, we're getting a little closer, right? In active listening, you then reflect back to me what you've heard. So I heard you say you have a red car.
Okay.
Try it. I have a red car. What did I tell you?
I've heard you say a red car.
Uh-huh. And
yes.
What else did I tell you?
And it's a Mustang GT.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a muscle car.
So now you and I, we're going to have less misunderstanding when I'm talking about
I just want to highlight that Haley in our studio right now is really getting a kick out of you leading me down this road and encouraging me to actively listen.
Is there something he doesn't do well? Have we stumbled on something earlier?
No.
Yeah. So active listening will help reduce misunderstanding and it slows things down. And then more importantly, and this is something we were having a little pre-conversation about, in marriage, sometimes people just want to be heard, Jason.
Right.
If I'm talking to John, if I know he's heard my points if I feel like I've been given the privilege of that and he's actively listening to me and telling me what he's hearing, if I know I've been heard, there's a lot of times I can release something. If you've got more skin in the game about that, fine. Let's go your direction. I know I've been heard. I'm comfortable letting it go now. I'm fighting with you and I'm fighting for it when I feel like you're not really hearing me.
Right.
So using active listening can help reduce some of that tension.
Yeah. So a bit of the active listening. How does agreement around the check? Because if we're in conflict, we might not be talking. Like if use the example, we're talking about ice cream. At some point, you have to choose one of the ice creams. But maybe if you're talking about a consistent behavior that maybe needs to change, because it's one thing to actively listen. What would you say? So we actively listen, and so you've been heard. But now I feel like, is there a need to come to a place of agreement? And so if it's about behavior, so I've heard you say that I do this and I do this and I do this. I don't necessarily agree with you, or I do agree with you, but here's why, and let me explain that away, why I do that. Any steps or ideas on how to navigate that?
I mean, you're kind of getting into a full counseling session now. We'd
That's
have
what I
to
was
kind
trying
of
to
have
get. Do
material.
I need to pay you $150 to be able to?
No, and it's more than that.
I know.
But anyway, no.
I was thinking with copay and insurance. I don't know.
Well, that would help. Yeah,
okay.
that to bring it down. I think a good thing here, maybe for us to think about, is when you are asking for a need to be met or presenting something, your partner can only give you a yes, a no, or a compromise. Yes, I understood what you wanted, and I can give that to you. No, I've actively listened. I know what you want. I don't agree, and I don't want to do that. Or a compromise. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but in this instance, could we do it this way? Or I could do that if you would do, right? And then they've just presented one side, and now you get to give a yes, a no, or a compromise. And you start moving towards one another. But if you can just simplify it in your head, conflict is just a difference of opinion. And really, when I get my felt need out there, all I can get from my partner is a yes, a no, or a compromise. And then we respond back to that. So without getting into a full counseling session.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's super
helpful. It would look
helpful.
like that.
And I know we actually wanted to talk about compromise a bit too. So that's a big word when you hear people talk about healthy marriages. How can couples actually compromise without feeling like they're giving up too much?
Yes, and even in the question, it's already sort of hinting at an error.
Right.
Think about a boat, a rowboat, a small boat. When you have two people in a boat, if they lean out, the boat gets really tippy. But if they lean in, the boat becomes far more stable. And so if you're already coming into compromise thinking about, I may have to give up too much, you're already in a win-lose mindset.
Right.
That's not what compromise should be around. Compromise is, where can we meet so that everybody's going to win something, but everybody's going to have to give up a little something to get there. When one of us wins and one of us loses, we're both really losing. So, like the Bible talks about, we want to be of one accord. What can I do so that we can get into that same space? Don't think of compromise as losing. Think of it as finding that place of accord.
Hope in Real Life family, we are going to press pause on this conversation. We figure if you're listening to this while driving to work, you're probably sitting in your parking spot and it's probably about time to go in for that meeting. We will be here when you are ready to pick up the rest of this episode, and we will see you on the other side. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.